From Geppetto Studios in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, welcome to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, your home for inclusive, positive geek culture, where we talk about movies, comics, music, books, and whatever else we feel like. Please welcome your host.
Cripes, I suck.
I am a terrible host.
Brad Mendenhall.
Hey kids, it is episode 242 of the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast. Honey Badger and her amazing friends reunite to discuss Marvel's Black Widow. And it starts right now.
Honey Badger and her amazing friends.
So we are reunited. We're going to dive right in because Jarf, as sometimes happens, has an early bedtime or possibly a rerun of Matlock. I don't know. You know, that joke doesn't even carry any weight anymore. It's been 30 years since anyone gave a crap about what Matlock.
Yeah, you're trying to make fun of me for being old by referencing a show that is super old.
I own it. I work with so many 20-somethings, and I just keep calling them fetuses. And it's like, I remember once I was working with one young woman who, by the way, has gone on to become the CEO and founder of a successful hard lemonade company. So not only is she very young, but she's far outweighed many of my accomplishments. And I one time was talking to her, and I mentioned something, Rolling Stones, Beatles, whatever. And she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I said, that's because I have T-shirts older than you. And I looked at her, I was like, I might actually own T-shirts older than this girl.
Wow.
Well, you can't help people continuously being born and eventually entering the workforce, but you can get rid of your busted ass old T-shirts. That is in your control.
I know, but let's be honest. It's not easy to find a Matthew Sweet concert shirt from the 100% Fun tour. But that's a whole different discussion. We are all here. Honey Badger and her amazing friends have reunited. It's been a little while. It's always hard to get us together, not because we don't want to reunite, but because we need something big. It has to be worth it. Something big happened. Black Widow came out, and then the news kept getting weirder. But before we get to that, it's been a little while. Katie, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. You kind of alluded to this. So I was thinking I would have my question a little bit later, but that's fine. So in light of the recent news that Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney for pay that she feels like she's owed because she was told that her film was only going to be released in theaters and not also on Disney Plus. How do you think this affects her in the MCU? Do you think that before this there might have been a chance with like the multiverse and all that stuff for her to come back and this killed it, or do you think that was never in the plan?
I don't think that was ever in the plan. And if it was in the plan, it's not going to happen now. I feel like she might have a sour taste in her mouth, and Disney needs to shut up and they need to pay her money. The new chick that's in the movie, she's supposed to be the replacement, so I don't think they were, like, maybe down the line they might have approached her and said, hey, let's do a multiverse version of you or whatnot. But yeah, I don't think that was in their immediate plans at all.
Full disclosure, I have a hard time empathizing with Scarlett. Nothing related to this situation, but just purely on the basis that she has not been a good ally in terms of whitewashing roles, Ghost in the Shell in particular. But just looking at this circumstance, I'm 100% in support of her. People deserve to get paid. They do not deserve to be screwed out of their contracts. I agree with what Mike said. I don't think it was ever in the cards. There was nothing in the movie that kind of indicated that they were leaning that direction with or without this struggle over the money.
I would like to ask you this, though, about that Ghost in the Shell. Real quick, I just want to know if you're aware or not that the original creator of Ghost in the Shell said it was perfectly fine for Scarlett to play that role because of it being an android, the features or whatever, but he was perfectly satisfied with it. Does that change your opinion on that situation, or you still feel the same?
I still feel the same because I don't see any indication that that was the only reason that Scarlett was okay with it.
Okay.
I think it does actually change how bad it is. But I think she would have done it even if the creator said, oh no, that is not right. Because she just seemed very la-di-da about it.
Okay, cool. All right. I can see that.
After the Ghost in the Shell situation, she took a role to play a trans character. Her people's response to the criticism was really dismissive and it was really dismissive. I sometimes allow a little bit of light between what someone's people says and what they say, because often publicists, their job is to be often professional assholes, and they don't always have the full buy-in of their clients, but still, it's her people.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have a great track record. I just can't believe Disney's getting this wrong and Warner Brothers keeps getting it right. Tenet, they released on HBO Max, but they still sort of paid out everybody involved with that movie. The same thing happened with Wonder Woman, where Warner Brothers is pretty smart. They're keeping their talent happy. It's just shocking to me that Disney, just from a business aspect, and I'm sure they would have to pay Scarlett Johansson a lot of money, but it's Disney. They own 2/3 of money.
That Warner Brothers situation, that Warner Brothers situation is not all the way clean. The only people they approached first to handle that was Wonder Woman and Patty. I can't remember the director's name.
Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, they paid them out, but they did not hold a discussion with anyone else. And that's why what's the name? Christopher Nolan. That's why he immediately went off and started going on social media and being cast in the internet news as being pissed about it. Because the only people they talked to was the Wonder Woman cast, and it was only Wonder Woman and Patty Jenkins, and that was it. The rest of the people, like the team from Kong vs. Godzilla, Dune, and a couple other movies, started speaking up about it too. And after they started complaining and stuff, that's when they went back in to talk. So their hands aren't all the way clean. They tried to do the same thing.
So basically, they didn't do very well. They just did somewhat better than Disney.
Yes.
And my understanding is Marvel's not happy about it. Marvel they want it paid out, but Disney's the one, they write the checks.
That's my understanding as well. Feige is super upset. He tried to talk. What's being said is Feige was the voice of reason, trying to say that they needed to pay Scarlett, they needed to pay her. The other thing that I don't like about it is now that this has happened, now they're trying to make up news and saying that Shang-Chi and Eternals, when it comes out, won't be on Disney Plus. Of course it won't. They said that months ago. They said Black Widow was the only one that was getting the dual release. They put out a trailer that said, you want to see our movies? You got to go to the movie theaters after Black Widow. So I don't know why websites are trying to treat this as brand new news that these aren't going to be on Disney Plus. It's really freaking annoying.
I don't think we're going to see Scarlett Johansson back. I think there was a possibility 5-10 years. Right now, somewhere, Michael Keaton's filming as Batman. Brandon Routh has been Superman on one of the WB shows. There's always a possibility of coming back. I agree there was no plans for it, but there's going to be a lot of anger. It's still possible that she could come back someday in some role. Not necessarily as Natasha, but I don't know. The next iteration of Black Widow where she plays her mom. They've done that in the Superman films where Lois Lane from the Superman TV show played Lois Lane's mom in the first Christopher Reeves movie. You could see something like that down the line, but a lot of stuff would have to change. No matter how bad they are, some tend to... the right person comes into power and writes a big check, and all of a sudden everything's fine. We're in a world where Robin Williams, as the genie from Aladdin, was so furious about the way they merchandised his character that he didn't come back for the TV show and the sequel, and then there was a change in leadership at Disney, and they paid him a lot of money, and he came back to be the genie in like the last direct-to-DVD piece of crap sequel. Money in time tends to improve things, but it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I don't think that there was a set plan, but I feel like the door was open with all the multiverse stuff that's coming to light now. However, I think that door is closed in light of the lawsuit.
They seem to be very happy to cast unknowns or people without a lot of pull. The era of them casting Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Even Benedict Cumberbatch was sort of a decent sized name. They seem to be happy to steer away from that with Shang-Chi. Eternals, you have Angelina Jolie and Selma Hayek, but they seem, I get the feeling, from what little I understand, they're very much supporting roles. Sort of like Tommy Lee Jones was in the first Captain America movie. I just can't believe Disney doesn't want to be in the Scarlett Johansson business. They make a lot of movies and they could use star power. Scarlett Johansson, her, Robert Downey Jr., and maybe Chris Hemsworth. Those are the three people in the Marvel movies that I feel have the most box office power outside of Marvel. Scarlett Johansson has starred in successful movies and has gotten Oscar nominations. You don't want to be on good terms with that person? That seems short-sighted.
Maybe it's just hard for us in our mortal lives to understand the way Disney looks at the world and how massive they are, because while they may be shutting the door on some kind of potential future project and profits with Scarlett, clearly they're just more interested in their chunk of the pie that they are getting from Black Widow, which is just already in motion, and giving her a bigger chunk of it. They just don't want to part with that money. And they have so many other things going on. They're like, we own Star Wars. We own everything. We can't do something with Scarlett. There's a million other people we can do stuff with because we are everything.
It's petty, but I think that they would have done something with her. It's the fact that it was the pandemic and it made money. I want people to understand that Scarlett's movie made money. It actually had the highest opening for a movie since the Star Wars movie that came out prior to the pandemic. So it definitely was going to make those ducats, and that's why I feel like Disney needs to pay her. But I think they're just trying to be all tight-lipped because they've gone so long without making the money that they normally make because of these films. I'm not saying that's a good excuse, because I absolutely think they should pay her. They should have talked to her first. She's been in these movies for over 10 years. She deserves a freaking conversation. She more than deserves one. She's been in damn near every single movie except for like the third iteration of each character's trilogies, but she's been in everything else. So she definitely deserved a conversation.
Well, and it's going to look bad 5-10 years from now when they have some sort of event where all the former stars of Avengers movies come out. There's going to be Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. They're going to be standing on the stage, and Scarlett Johansson isn't going to be on stage with them. She really deserves to be on that stage, but these feuds can be ugly and they can last a long time.
I have a follow-up question. It's kind of like, in with that, I just thought of it. Did you guys see it in the theater, or did you watch it on Disney Plus?
I saw it in theaters.
Me too.
It was the first time seeing a movie in theaters since this all happened.
Yes, us too.
Jarf?
Disney Plus.
Oh, okay. All right. Michael?
I saw it in theaters.
So we were all supporting Scarlett, and Jarf's like, nah, he's Team Disney.
Well, I've always said the only thing that's going to make me get back into the movies without a shadow of a doubt is a MCU flick. But we still ended up getting it on Disney Plus just because my wife and I went to go see it for date night, and we didn't take the kids, and the kids wanted to see it.
So you saw that? You didn't see Furious 9 or F9 or the 9, whatever the hell it is.
F9, yeah, I did get to see that in the movie theaters as well. But you already know that was my other give me. But those are the only two.
Some days you just got to see a movie about nitrous and family, and that was the day.
And you will be surprised. I was very disappointed with Fast 9.
Oh no!
Ah, bummer.
And I know you guys know I'm the biggest Fast and Furious making an excuse for that movie fan ever. But Fast 9 was disappointing.
The unbelievable ticket has been revoked.
Wow.
They raped my unbelievable ticket, man. They took advantage of me.
Well, that's your soundbite for the episode there.
Before we even go into the movie in general, Taskmaster. A lot of people really excited about the Taskmaster being in this movie. Fun character from the comics for a long time. Neat powers. What is it called? Photographic reflexes. Basically, the ability to see anyone perform any act and then duplicate it. People are really excited about Taskmaster. Has gotten not the warmest reception for the take in the movie. Now, Katie, you are not the biggest comic fan of the group. How did you like Taskmaster?
I liked it. I thought, I mean, it was, to me, I guessed who it was, but I liked that spin of it. I thought that was a really neat twist, because, normally you see something like gunned out like that and kind of mechanical and a big fighter, and you don't think there's a woman behind that. So I thought that was really cool.
So the only thing that I did not like is they did not convince me that being able to copy the way someone else fights somehow makes you the scariest fighter. I don't know how much we're getting into spoilers, but because the character was not always acting on their own agency, it didn't allow us to have much in the way of story from them as a villain. So they really needed to be giving something that was just a cool twist, either about their powers or the way they're interacting. I'm thinking of Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where it was just a really neat visual and she was slipping in and out of tangibility. And so it's just kind of like, oh, this is someone that it's an interesting puzzle how you're going to fight them. So instead we just have, okay, you go into a stance. Taskmaster goes into the same stance. I don't know. Even if I could physically move the same as Mike Tyson would still beat me up. So that's where I'm not sold.
That's a question a lot of our listeners have had. Who would win a fight? You or Mike Tyson. So, but you're tapping out. You're not even going to go. You're not even going to set foot in the ring.
The schoolyard question has been answered.
I feel like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity. I can't remember. There was one comic where what they did is they would show the Taskmaster performing some amazing feat of acrobatics, and the artist had the conceit where he would all of a sudden change the image from Taskmaster to Daredevil. And then he would throw his shield and they would change the image to Captain America. And I think there would be like a way to do something interesting where splice in iconic shots of the characters from Marvel Universe doing something, throwing the shield, bow and arrow, have some sort of split screen with Taskmaster in the same pose, play on the history of Marvel movies. All they did is they just showed Taskmaster watching footage from Avengers, the first Avengers movie, which was fine. I do feel there was a little bit of a chance for play around with it visually. And Black Widow, and I will get to a little bit more. I enjoyed the movie, but they could have used all the extra big budget action movie oomph they could get, because Black Widow sort of isn't as readily made for big explosions as Iron Man. Having something that would have a little visual flair, I think, could have helped it. Mike, what did you think of Taskmaster?
I was not disappointed with Taskmaster. I kind of figured it was going to be a woman in the suit to begin with, and I was just like, yeah, man, they don't have a lot of female characters. I mean, they're starting to build up their female roster with Phase 4, and they started doing it in Phase 3. But this is probably going to be a female bad guy. I'm not bothered by that. And a lot of people that are that have popped up on social media that are these rabid Taskmaster fans, quit lying. Shut up. None of you were thinking about Taskmaster like that. Because if you were, you'd be on the Avengers game playing with me, whooping Taskmaster's ass. So I don't want to hear none of that about, he's got this super deep cult following. Nobody cares about him. He was a D-lister that just started getting cool a couple years ago in the comic book. That's how I feel about it.
He's a comic book character that was very much a comic book character. He talked with sort of like a heavy Brooklyn accent and very Carney-esque. The costume looked great in comics, but I think anything more honest or comic book accurate would probably look terrible. It's an underwear on top of, white underwear on top of the blue tights costume. The visuals worked out real well. Like there was something there to a bad guy that is so physically overpowering. That's never been Black Widow's thing. Black Widow's always been the smart one, the clever one, the strategist. She's the one who beat Loki in the first Avengers movie just by playing on his ego and his condescension. they did the right thing where she knows she's outmatched, but she's able to outsmart the character and also her humanity. So, which is something that she's struggled so hard to get the red out of her ledger and all of that.
It also doesn't mean that there isn't, and like when they do things like that in MCU movies, it doesn't faze me a whole lot because it doesn't mean that there isn't a guy Taskmaster out there. For all we know, that whole Taskmaster project, you probably didn't get the same sense of fear from it because it wasn't Taskmaster, and that project was based off of him because they're trying to mimic it or because he won't work with them or something like that. Prime example, everyone thought we were getting the 10 rings in Iron Man 3. We did not. They gave us a goose egg, but now we're getting the real Mandarin in Shang-Chi. Little side character that, really wasn't on nobody's radar. I don't let that does not bother me. The MCU has created a buffer of comfort and trust with me, and it's called $24 billion out of 24 movies. It's going to take a lot for them to make me lose faith in them.
If I had the energy and the time, I would go back and like play the clip of him saying the same thing about the Fast and Furious series. But no, I agree. Hey, they could be something cool in the Thunderbolts movie or Dark Avengers movie where you have, they bring Taskmaster back and the character sees there's another Taskmaster and they're off the hood comes Keanu Reeves or someone who's like grizzled that can do the athleticism, and everyone loses their mind for the original Taskmaster. Jarf, I heard you say something when you heard red in the ledger.
Actually, it was Black Widow being smart and outsmarting her opponents rather than simply beating them up. This is jumping way ahead, but that callback that they did to thank you for your cooperation, that was a stand up and cheer moment for me. Even watching at home on Disney Plus.
It was so great because the actor who played the bad guy, whose name's completely escaping, I know he played Beowulf a bunch of years ago.
Yes, he did.
He was so condescending and so arrogant and so dismissive, and then even making her flinch by almost going to hit her, and then her just turning it around and is like, thank you for your. It was so great, and the look on his face, because it wasn't just anger, he was just confused that she outsmarted him. So that was great. It was a good movie. It had I enjoyed it very much. I thought it had some great moments. I liked what was it, Florence Pugh?
Yes.
She had some great lines, and I'm looking forward to seeing her in more movies because she seems to be able to sort of poke fun at some of the tropes, not in as obvious way as like Deadpool does, but when she makes fun of the superhero landing. That was pretty great.
It absolutely was.
Katie, are you excited for more of the new Black Widow?
I am. I think Florence Pugh did an amazing job. I am really excited to see where she takes this character. I thought she was, just enough funny, total badass, and, has like a dark, storied past that we kind of get to see, but I'd love to see more of her time as a widow. I think she's going to be a great addition to the MCU.
Jarf, there's a bunch of widows out there. They could show up in whatever is the next big army of Avengers. You could have the Wakandans and all the wizards, and then you could have 20 Black Widows lining up. How would you like to see that?
I would dig that. That's kind of getting into what I wish this movie was instead, which is a Disney Plus series, because I think they really whisked through the story. And as much as I enjoyed it for what it was, if it was stretched out into a series, then you could have getting to know one or more of the widows in each episode and getting more backstory about Florence Pugh's character and Natasha and their whole family, and more vignettes of that. That was just what I was imagining as I was watching it. But back to Florence Pugh, I agree with everything that Katie said. I would add, I really liked the physicality that she brought. She has this way of really showing all of the struggle, and she doesn't try to come across as this invincible, perfect, untouchable fighter. You really see her struggle and grunt and groan. And so she has this kind of Humphrey Bogart energy where she is scrappy, and it makes her so much more relatable.
They filmed her smaller and less imposing than Scarlett Johansson, which is funny because Scarlett Johansson's a tiny person. They sort of doubled down. I probably to give her the younger sister feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more of that. We think there's going to be a Black Widow movie with her, or heavily implied that she's going to show up in the Hawkeye TV show. Do we think that she's going to be a Disney Plus character?
I think that she was great in the movie. I agree with everything everybody says. If she continues that in all of her appearances, she's going to get a movie or she's going to get a TV show. I don't think there's any immediate plans for her right now because they didn't know what her reaction to the fan base would be, but they see it now. So I can definitely see them having potential ideas laid out for her, but she would have to continue to nail all of her appearances the way she did in this one, and that would really be dependent on the fan base and how much we cheer her on or whatnot. I think that's what Marvel's really going to start basing their stuff off of. I know Feige made an announcement, or rather MCU made an announcement that they're not going to be dealing with long-term contracts anymore. They're going to be dealing with people that really want to be in their films. And I know a lot of that's going to be based off of how successful each character is in these films and TV shows. I never would have thought that we got a Hawkeye show, and we're getting a Hawkeye show at the end of this year. But it came after phase 1, 2, and 3. I think there's definite potential there for her because she was great.
One thing that I saw called out, and I'm curious to see your guys' thoughts on this. This phase seems a little bit like the weird phase between WandaVision, Eternals, which looks weird, Shang-Chi, which has some pretty intense fantasy imagery. In the Doctor Strange movie, you're having multiverse stuff and Sam Raimi directing, and even the Spider-Man movie and Spider-Man, who's usually, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. There's so many implications of there being more multiverse stuff in there to make it weird. And the two properties that have been in here that don't really fit that mold is Falcon and Winter Soldier. And that was to me, it was almost supposed to be a transition where that was supposed to be the first of the phase 4, but because of delays, it got released after WandaVision. And Black Widow. I liked the movie, but because it feels a little out of place in the current iteration, the current phase, and because it features a character that we know dies 5 years later, would you guys have enjoyed this movie more if it had appeared in the previous phase?
I would have loved to have had this sooner and more in sequential order of if it actually was after Civil War when it takes place. I definitely would. I think that was a really bad call on Disney's part of not doing a standalone movie for her until now, because I think they could have generated a lot more interest, and I think that would have opened a lot of doors for them.
Yes, I 100% agree. That was part of the big loss of this movie, that it is coming out too late, and specifically when Natasha's future is already written and we know. Although they did I don't know if any of you felt yourself being duped by this thing at the end where the sister whistles and you're kind of like, wait, am I going to hear the reply whistle? Are they bringing her back to life? But yeah, I don't know. You're so boxed in when that has already happened. So it would have been so much cooler if it happened earlier.
I think they absolutely should have gave her a movie sooner. There was I understand they had to build the character up, but Black Widow definitely deserved to have her own film sooner in the franchise or whatnot. I think I would have enjoyed it as much, but I don't think none of the emotional beats would have connected with me as much as they did seeing it after seeing everything else. Because the one thing that I did want them to do was to give Black Widow a funeral. They didn't exactly give her a funeral, but they did do the thing at the end which relates to it, which made me happy. But seeing her interact with her sister, seeing her interact with her family, and thinking about everything that Black Widow has done leading up to this, film coming out, she really is a centerpiece, man. Like you really got to give her roses and her props. Like she's a dope character, and she held it down up in the film. So like when I think about her sacrifice, her fight with Hawkeye, like for now that makes more sense to me. Like I knew they were going to fight. I knew she was going to try to save Hawkeye because of his family or whatnot. But because of this film, that added more credence and weight to it for me. I'm a sap though, so I can't expect everybody else to feel like that. Wear my feelings on my sleeve. But everything she did felt more weighted after me seeing the movie and then looking back at it. Because me and my son we just finished watching all the movies. Well, we haven't finished, but we've been watching the movies in timeline order. So all that stuff is like super fresh. And then we saw Black Widow. And I was like, oh man, that's made my feels.
A lot of characters were introduced in this movie, and you have Red Guardian was fantastic, and Rachel Weisz as a generation previous Black Widow, and she's great. And you have all the introduction of all the other widows and the Taskmaster. Some of these characters, I could see them very easily working into other properties. If they do a Thunderbolts/Dark Avengers, Taskmaster could be right there. Which of these characters are you most interested in seeing do something else?
I'm the most interested in seeing Yelena. Am I pronouncing that right? Florence Pugh's character. Totally dig that she's going to pop up in Hawkeye. I like the others, but just from like a character and performance standpoint, she was one that stood out for me. I was surprised. I went into it expecting to like Rachel Weisz the most, just because I was already a fan of her, but Florence Pugh surprised me.
It's nice to be surprised every now and then.
No, I agree with Jarf. I mean, I already talked about this, but I'm excited to see where the character Yelena goes. I didn't felt like I connected with any of the other folks. They did great, but I wasn't like, I need to know more about these people. But I really, really want to know more, and I want to see more of Yelena.
I loved all the characters. It's probably the mom that was on the bottom of my list, but I still enjoyed her. Yelena was a breakaway star in the film. I don't count Black Widow because it is her movie, so she was just. I mean, Black Widow was great. She's one of my favorites, but I set her to the side and look at the other characters. Red Guardian is probably fantastic. I want to see the Captain America fight with him and Red Guardian. I want to see him pop up in other people's films. That scene where he was trying to help Yelena out in the room, it was terribly bad. Like, I knew every mistake he was about to make. Like, and he delivered on every single mistake. Good stuff, man. Like, that movie was really good. Like, I enjoyed it. Like, it was not like, for me, it definitely is not on the bottom list of the MCU films. Like, they did that movie justice, and I knew it was going to be good when it came on, and I saw that Black Widow. I mean, that Scarlett Johansson was a executive producer. When I saw her name on this movie, I was like, yeah, she's not about to let this movie be bad. There's no way in the world. She's been rocking this character for 10 years. She's not about to let it be bad at all.
When they had the scene where David Harbour as Red Guardian walks up to Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, and basically was asking if Captain America ever talked about him. I understand why Chris Evans is retiring from the role, but Chris Evans was so good at Captain America. It is disappointing we're not going to get a scene of Red Guardian and Captain America, and Red Guardian just trying to impress him or say, he's like, don't you remember me? Don't you remember me? And that would be so great. And David Harbour, he has such wonderful comedic timing, and he has no vanity. And I remember a long time ago, Jarf and I talking about David Harbour in Stranger Things, where he had to do a scene with his shirt off, and he stopped working out because, like, no, wait a minute, this character wouldn't look good with his shirt off. He's like, he's not afraid to look bad without a shirt on, but still sort of having that old guy out of shape, but still tough look to him. He's not chiseled like you expect from a Marvel male character. You still believe that he can take a punch, and he can certainly break a guy's arm in an arm wrestling contest. He's great in this role. It's a shame that, don't get me wrong, he could still talk to Sam Wilson, Captain America, but it's not going to quite be the same. I would be all in on a Red Guardian Disney Plus series. I think that could be really fun. So far with Disney Plus, they've done straight ahead action spy stuff. They've done wacky magic stuff. They've done big budget Doctor Who with Loki. Action comedy could be really fun, and David Harbour would be great in that. Before we get to our pluggables, I actually have a little of an announcement that I've been waiting on, and some viewers who listen closely to the show have already called this out, but I sort of wanted to make an announcement, and I wanted to make it with you guys, especially with Jarv since he's been here from the beginning. Well, a wonderful thing has happened with this show. We've had an amazing year and some great guests and some pretty big name guests and more listeners, and it's been really cool. One thing that's sort of happened is we've always sort of played fast and loose with copyright laws, and we love having great music interludes. That has gotten episodes pulled down because it's gotten too big. We've flown too close to the sun. And I sort of wanted to say, people have noticed that a couple episodes have been pulled. We are in the process of re-editing those and putting those out again with new music that is specific to Cosmic Geppetto, music by the great Sean Reynolds, who created 3 or 4 opening theme songs for this show. I did want to announce that because it's the growing pains of this show where we no longer could just slap a Prince song at the beginning of an episode and not prepared to get sued. Yeah, I wanted to announce that real quick. It's weird. It's weird having success. And you guys specifically are such a huge part of it because really before Michael and Katie became a big part of this was really just me and Jarv talking every now and then. When Katie and Michael became part of the show, we realized, oh, this is actually something more. Now we're just getting a little too big. So we had to change things around.
Well, congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Congrats on being so big that now episodes get pulled.
And I like that you bookended this episode with lawsuits as a theme.
We have not gotten sued. I would like to say I'm not starting a GoFundMe to pay for lawyers because I would not survive a lawsuit with anybody important. Jarf, plug your pluggables. What do you have going on?
I completed Joe versus the Minute, and I am in production for Dazed and Confused 33 and a third. There's something like 200, 300 Movies by Minute podcasts currently. So if there's a movie that you love, there's a really good chance that someone is recording an episode for every minute of airtime of that movie.
Katie, I know you're not doing a whole lot of podcasting aside from when we're able to pull you out and have you join us because you've been crazy busy, but I always know you have some great stuff going on. Tell us more.
I don't really have anything to plug.
Nothing with Special Olympics right now?
They're not really doing competitions because of the pandemic.
Do you want to introduce our listeners to your puppy?
I think she's... Come here. Oh, now you're quiet. I've been on mute like this whole time because she's been screaming her head off.
She understands how podcasting works.
So, yeah, I adopted a puppy. Her name is Iris. She comes from St. Lucia. She is called a pot cake, which is just what they call the wild island dogs. There's a huge effort to get these dogs adopted out, and they actually had the population under control pre-pandemic. They had organizations that would go out and spay and neuter the wild dogs so they didn't continue the population, but they had to stop a lot of that stuff because of the pandemic. So now they're overrun with puppies. So if you're looking for a puppy, you can check out the Bruno Project. They're a pretty cool organization. Not as how we got Miss Iris.
Let me get this straight. You have a dog from St. Lucian. I have a cat that was imported from Egypt as part of a rescue program. How come all of our animals are better traveled than I am?
I don't know.
And I was like, yeah, well, my cat's from Egypt. I went to Canada once. Cripes, I suck.
I have an Australian mini doodle.
Your dog's from Australia?
They're not really from Australia. That's just where the idea for combining a cockapoo and a little bit of Labrador and some other dogs to make a cartoonishly cute teddy bear dog came from. So it's a little bit of a misnomer. Technically, I just thought it would be a fun addition to the conversation.
Oh, so I just completely stomped on your joke.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm used to it.
I am a terrible host. Katie and Jarf are always doing great work. Jarf through his profession, Katie through all the volunteer work she does to make the world a better place. It's something that I am deeply envious of. It's just very impressive, the both of them, and I have so much admiration. And all joking aside, I have a lot of admiration for the both of you. And to follow that up, now I'm going to ask Mike what he wants to plug.
I really don't have that much to plug. It's just everybody can follow me on Most Epic Art. That's my name on all social media. And freestylecomics.net. That'll take you to our highly successful Kickstarter where we raised over $11,000 for the Hot Shot trade. And our backer kit store is up. So if you missed a Kickstarter, you'd be able to get in now on our backer kit store so you can still get stuff shipped out to you like everybody else that supported us. That'd be appreciated because I know some people missed out on it.
Recently, I watched Invincible. There are parallels between Invincible and Hot Shot. I would say that Hot Shot has a more interesting story.
Oh.
I think having that main character who's likable, relatable, powerful, but a more powerful Peter Parker-esque character. Invincible's great, but Hot Shot having also a hero of color in the world. Hot Shot has your name, Mike, and the stories and the affection and the protection that you have of that character to make sure it's a good stories is so amazing. And when I watch Invincible, it's like, you know what? I think I might like this 10% more if it was Hot Shot. I'm going to use all my pull to get Amazon to work that deal. Stay by the phone.
Oh, man. Animated Hot Shot would be dope.
Oh, cripes. Yeah.
That would just float my boat. I already know how I want to do it. Have you seen that show, The Trolls, on Netflix? I pronounce the director's name wrong all the time, but he directed Hellboy. Well, he started a show called Trolls where these kids go on this adventure, cave troll fighting and stuff like that. And then they did a spin-off series about aliens, and they did a spin-off series about knights and magic, and all those shows are connected in one universe, and then they're doing a movie to wrap it all up together, just like a MCU special. It's really cool. And it's all animated and stuff, so great characters in there.
Big fans of Mike Watson. Everything that he touches is gold. And Mike, you've been part of the Cosmic Geppetto family for a long time, and this all happened because Jarf thought your art was cool at a Comic-Con. We're so lucky. I'm so glad that we got the gang together, and we're gonna do this again. I don't know when. Something has to be big enough and good enough for this team, and that ain't easy. So, guys, thank you so much. With that, Jarf, why don't you do your thing?
Thank you, Otter. Nice catching up with everybody, and listeners, we'll see you in the funny pages.
That wraps episode 242. Big thanks to Katie, Mike, and Jarf. To borrow from the film franchise Mike has given up on, they are more than friends. They're family. Not sure when they will return, but they will. Coming soon to the Cosmic Geppetto podcast, Xueting Ni returns to talk about Shang-Chi. Gosh, after all these years, we are becoming the Marvel talk show I planned us to be. Till then, as Jarf already said,
see you in the funny pages.
Subscribe to the Cosmic Geppetto podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever quality podcasts can be found. Rate and review us while there. Follow us on Twitter @CosmicGPod, and we will follow you back. Unless you're a jerk. We don't follow jerks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cosmic Geppetto. We love hearing your ideas for upcoming episodes. Email us at cosmicgeppetto@comcast.net.
They raped my unbelievable ticket, man. They took advantage of me.